Almost exactly 3 years ago today, I made my history-making professional boxing debut. I was about to become Saudi Arabia's first ever professional boxer in history. Amazing, right? Great. But there was one problem. I've never done it before. No one's ever done it before. But what if there was a way? What if there was a way for me to do it before I actually do it? What if there was a way for us to do something before we actually do it? The truth is, I've already fought this fight 100 times in my head. I've already walked to the ring, looked at the crowd, smiled and engaged with them. I've already touched the gloves. I even put on a great performance and I already won. I'm in my hotel room the night before the fight, the whole week even. I turn off all the lights. I have my laptop open to YouTube and it's playing exactly what I searched for. Sounds of a boxing crowd at a full arena. I turn the brightness completely down and I close my eyes. And there, I begin to imagine. I imagine everything. The situation, the scenarios, the punches. Not just the situation and the scenario, but even the feeling. The feeling of listening to the crowd from the boxing arena. The feeling of throwing my jab, my right, my left hook. I'm dominating. I put on a great performance and I win in front of my home crowd. The brain doesn't know the difference. The brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's fake. The brain can't distinguish the difference between imagination and rehearsal. The boundaries we have in our life are not the physical boundaries, but they're always the mental boundaries. The boundaries we have that stop us from achieving anything we want to achieve are not the external boundaries, but the internal boundaries. It's not the rules, the laws, the limitations, how big you are, how small you are, how tall or short, but it's always the fear, the doubt, the anxiety, the worries, the stress. And there are two main tools to defeat them, but in psychology, we call these self-limiting beliefs. How many of you here today stop themselves from doing something, not because they tried and they failed, but because they already told themselves they can't do it. They already told themselves that they are not going to be able to do it. They didn't even try it. The two tools that defeats the real fight inside our minds, which is always the more important fight, the two tools to do this with is visualization and positive self-talk and positive thoughts. Visualization is the art of mentally rehearsing something so vividly to the point where it feels real. MRI scans actually show that when you start vividly visualizing and imagining a specific scenario and situation, the same neural pathways activate in your brain as if when you're actually doing it. The brain can't tell the difference. The muscles twitch the same way. The central nervous system activates the same way. Even the adrenaline rush is exactly the same. There was a study done at the University of Cleveland where they brought a group of individuals and they asked them to visualize a strength training program, a weightlifting program for 8 weeks, training 3 times a week. They weren't actually going to do it. All they had to do was imagine it, visualize it, mentally rehearse it. But they had to do it with detail. Every single week they had to visualize how hard the lifts were. They had to visualize the weight increasing every week. But the most important part was they had to visualize a positive outcome. They had to visualize them actually successfully lifting the weight. And you know what that study showed? An increase in muscle mass and an increase in strength in these individuals. They never actually did it. All they did was imagine it. That concept we call functional equivalence. And it's important to know that visualization builds what we call self-efficiency, the belief in your own ability to achieve a successful outcome. Now you need to know, it builds the belief of a successful outcome in your abilities. It does not guarantee a successful outcome. That is God. We can't do that. But you have to find detachment in that. You have to detach the journey from the result, and the result from the journey. The journey never dictates the result, and the result never dictates the journey. Just my last fight, I had to convince myself that I was gonna win, even though I was coming off my first ever draw. I'm undefeated, but now I face a draw, and when I draw, it feels like a loss. But I have to convince myself that for this fight, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna go back to winning ways. A month and a half into my preparation, I get a horrible virus. I'm sick for 3 weeks, in bed, no movement. I only have 2 weeks to build months of training in camp, only in 2 weeks before the fight. To make it even worse, in these 2 weeks, every single day, I performed worse than the other. I did worse than the other. Every day, I couldn't find my rhythm. I couldn't find my flow. But that never changed what I was telling myself when I would think to the fight. That never changed how I would feel about myself when I thought about the fight. I would talk to myself, despite my training, and even though I can't find my rhythm, I will win on fight night. I will go back to winning ways. I'm not scared, I'm excited. I'm not nervous, I'm eager. I can't find my rhythm now, it's okay, I'll find it on fight night. When I would sit down every night to visualize my fight, I always visualized myself dominant. I always visualized a positive outcome. I would win the fight at the end. Even if the training showed that I wouldn't, but I had to visualize like that because the brain doesn't know the difference. And you know what the result was? In my hardest training camp yet, I had my best performance to date. The global media was talking about it, the international audience was talking about it, and all they asked me was, how different was this training camp? I couldn't say the truth. Fake it till you make it is not just in actions, but it's in thoughts as well. It's in feelings, it's in emotions. You control your thoughts. The thoughts don't control you. But if you don't control your thoughts, the thoughts will control you. There's an exercise I want everyone to do when they're back home. I call it the open notebook exercise. What you're going to do is you're going to have an open notebook placed somewhere at your home that you could always see wherever you go. Whenever you go from one place to another, you will see that notebook. It's important that this notebook stays open because when it's open, it encourages you to participate. What you're going to do in that notebook is you're going to split the page in half. The first half, you're going to write your negative thoughts. The second half, you're going to write what you can do about them. What you will find is many of the negative thoughts, you can now do something about them and you can't control. So they're gone. And the remaining negative thoughts, you can't do anything about them, so you can't control them. So they should be gone too. If you can't control an outcome, it shouldn't even be there. And if you can't control an outcome, then deal with it. Seeing the future can break you, but feeling the future can make you. Positive self-talk actually gives us better endurance. It makes us push for more. It makes us push harder, take more, and last longer. Negative self-talk actually raises cortisol levels, cortisol being the stress hormone. And positive self-talk raises dopamine levels. Dopamine we call the feel-good chemical. Why? Because we link it to reward and motivation. There are 2 ways to separate yourself from being good to being great. There are 2 things that separate the good from the great, even if they have the same physical abilities. How fast you forget a mistake, and how well you convince yourself out of a mistake. You need to forget the mistakes quickly if you want to be a great. I'm not saying disregard them. I'm not saying just dismiss them. I'm saying accept them and convince yourself out of the mistake that you cannot go back in time and change it. If you try to go back in time, you're going to stay there. But forget the mistake, convince yourself out of it, and then you will move on to the present, which takes you to the future. You won't make that mistake again. And even if you do make that mistake again, it won't be in the same way. And you won't react the same way. For the past 3 months, I've been preparing for my biggest fight to date. At the final hour, just a few days ago, negotiations collapsed. I cannot control the outcome. I cannot control the action. I can only control the reaction. And what I say to myself, what I speak to myself, and what I think to myself is what's going to give me endurance going forward. You know what I said? Instead of saying, why me? Why did this happen to me? 3 months, my biggest fight, it was going to be broadcasted all over the world. I said, I'm being kept for something better. I'm being kept for something greater. I know God is saving something bigger and better for me. What I say to myself, even if it's fake, I'm begging you all, even if it's fake, the brain doesn't know the difference. Only you will carry on with how you imagine it to yourself and how you say it to yourself. I want you all with me now to close your eyes, even if it's for a few seconds. Imagine something and think of something you've been trying to achieve. You've been trying to get, but you maybe have been convincing yourself that you can't do it. Maybe you're going for it now, but it's been hard and you've been struggling. Say to yourself now that you will do it. You are strong enough. You are capable enough. And no matter who or what stands in the way, you will make it happen. You are able to make it happen. You can make it happen. And you will make it happen. There's a psychology term that we call neuroplasticity, and the neuroscience term. Neuroplasticity is how your brain rewires after specific reactions to specific actions that happen, through repeated thoughts and through repeated things that you say to yourself. Every single time you feed yourself a thought, the brain rewires into thinking that this is now how you react to this specific action. I promise you, after the exercise we just did, if you felt it or you didn't feel it, there was a chemical change in your body with positive energy. In Arabic, we have a saying that we say, a kind word is charity. And sometimes the best charity is one to yourself. Words, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, they control your past, your present, and your future. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.